For our next video, we'll re-enter the crop acreage crop insurance tab to continue inputting information around our crop insurance policies. Recall that we'd entered the planted acres previously, and they appear here. Now we're going to talk about the information that we need and what we're going to input for our crop insurance benchmarks. This will be probably a little more difficult for the farmer to get their hands on. As mentioned earlier, to produce accurate estimates for crop insurance premiums and indemnities, the farmer will need to call their crop insurance agent for this information. The calculation for crop insurance premiums requires 3 separate yields, each having their own definition and calculation. These are called rate yield, adjusted yield, and approved yield. These yields also depend on the answers to a few questions about what choices were made to produce those yields. In particular, the questions include whether trend adjustment and or yield exclusion were used. And while every farm is different, farmers who have farmed the same land for many years will typically choose both TA and YE. This selection will generally produce the highest farm benchmark approved yield for determining crop insurance indemnities. And for most farmers, the approved yields will be pretty close to their expected crop yields. If a farmer expects to do 210 corn bushels an acre yield, the approved yields will typically be pretty close to that number. And then their rate yields and adjusted yields, which are not trend adjusted and based on historical information, will usually be somewhat below their approved yield, typically on the order of 10 or so % below. These are just some general rules of thumb, and actual results could differ quite a bit. So be sure to contact your crop insurance agent for these inputs for your farm. For purposes of our farm, we'll assume that the farmer and the crop insurance agent did choose TA and YE for all the crops. And the farmer's expected yield, in this case, is 210 for corn, 55 for full season beans, 70 for wheat, and 40 for DC beans. So when the farmer calls the crop insurance agent relays this information that we will now input into our input screens. For corn, crop insurance says that the farm's rate yield is 190. Adjusted yield is also 190. That we're not subject to any risk classes like being in a floodplain or other risks. We did use TA, we did use YE, and our approved yield is 210. Scroll down and we'll hit update for our corn. We'll do the same thing for our beans. For our full season beans, our crop insurance agents tells us that our rate yield is 50. Our adjusted yield is also 50. No risk class, we use TA, YE, and our approved yield is 55. And we'll update that. For wheat, rate yield is 65. Our adjusted yield also 65. TA, YE, and our approved yield is 70 for wheat. Update that. And then finally for double crop beans, rate yield for double crop beans, which are much lower yielding, 35. Our adjusted yield, 35. Use our trend adjustment, use our yield exclusion, and our approved yield is 40. We'll update that. So we've entered those all in the appropriate places. They're now saved. Go back to the dashboard, and then we'll start to complete the next portion of this input screen in our next video.